from Connecticut's newsroom. Now, Fox Connecticut Morning News.
Jubilation on the campus of West Point Military Academy overnight after cadets learn Osama bin Laden is dead. Here's a look at the spontaneous celebration. One cadet saying that curfew is typically 11:30 in the evening in West Point, but people were out cheering until the early morning hours. Welcome back, 5:30. Great to have you here on the Fox Connecticut Morning News. I'm Logan Burns alongside Sarah French. Want to continue this morning with our special coverage of the death of Osama bin Laden. He was shot and killed by U.S. Navy SEALs in Pakistan, and he has since been buried at sea.
CNN's Greg Black has more on this story.
Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda.
Nearly 10 years after the worst attack on American soil, President Obama announced to the American public late Sunday night that Osama bin Laden was dead. Officials say Osama bin Laden was killed in a U.S.-led military operation in a mansion in Abbottabad, about 2 hours north of Islamabad, Pakistan.
Today, at my direction, the United States launched a targeted operation against that compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. A small team of Americans carried out the operation with extraordinary courage and capability. No Americans were harmed. They took care to avoid civilian casualties. After a firefight, they killed Osama bin Laden and took custody of his body.
The Saudi national and terror kingpin was a focus of global intelligence efforts for masterminding the 9/11 attacks, as well as the attacks on U.S. embassies in Africa in 1998.
For over 2 decades, bin Laden has been al-Qaeda's leader and symbol, and has continued to plot attacks against our country and our friends and allies.
Shortly after hearing the news, crowds lined the streets outside the White House in celebration, as the president applauded the efforts of the U.S. military and called on the American people to embrace a renewed sense of unity.
Yet today's achievement is a testament to the greatness of our country and the determination of the American people.
In reaction to the news, the U.S. State Department says it'll step up security at U.S. diplomatic facilities all over the world. I'm Greg Black reporting.
And our coverage continues this morning on the terror leader's death.
Reaction here in Connecticut has been very emotional, and Fox Connecticut's Tom Lewis is live in Wethersfield with more on this. Tom?
Sarah, good morning to you. Certainly bittersweet feelings for those in Connecticut with connections to the 9/11 attacks upon hearing the news of the death of Osama bin Laden. One of those places is here in Wethersfield. We're at the 9/11 Memorial Sports Complex. I'll step aside and we'll show you. This is actually a support beam from the World Trade Center. There are only 2 that are on display in the entire world. One is at the Smithsonian, and one is here at the Pitkin Community Center in front of the sports complex, which was dedicated in the memory of 3 Wethersfield residents who were killed in the 9/11 attacks. Certainly, of course, the news that the #1 criminal in the world, Osama bin Laden, has been killed, rocked the country. It certainly felt ripples throughout the state here in Connecticut, us being so close to New York City, so close to ground zero. We talked to some folks and found out what their reaction was to the stunning news of the death of Osama bin Laden.
It's great. The best thing that happened right now.
What do you think this means for the country?
Well, it doesn't mean that terrorism will be over, but it means that we'll come down probably.
He was #1, so I'm pretty sure that, he ignited a lot of other people to follow him in his footsteps. So who's going to be next? Who's going to be targeted next?
So we should be cautious even with his death.
Yeah, I think there's more to come.
There was also reaction, of course, from the leaders here in Connecticut. Governor Dan Malloy released this statement. The news tonight that Osama bin Laden has been killed is 10 years in the making. As mayor of Stamford on 9/11, I remember waiting on the train platforms there as scared, confused, and overwhelmed commuters made their way home, none of us fully understanding what had just happened. I also cannot forget the Connecticut residents we lost that day. Also a statement from Senator Richard Blumenthal, who says, striking down this enemy of democracy and freedom is an historic victory for our nation and marks a significant turning point in the war on terror. My heart heart goes out to the families and loved ones of the American warriors who have been lost or injured in the war on terror. Certainly there is some irony if you think back to Saddam Hussein, who lived in a mansion and was found in a cave, and now Osama bin Laden, who lived in a cave and was found in a mansion. Certainly his death will certainly bring some good feelings that this chapter is over, but also bring back those horrible memories of what went down nearly 10 years ago. Live this morning in Wethersfield, Tom Lewis, Fox, Connecticut.
That's an interesting juxtaposition there. Yeah, Tom, hadn't thought of that. Very interesting. All right, let's talk.